We currently send a lot more than 1 million emails a month across our entire portfolio, but we've never done it for a single client with a single offer until recently, where we tried it. We took this one client from 40,000 emails a month up to currently 1.4 million emails a month. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what happened, what went well, what didn't go well, what broke, and what indicators we could kind of see that meant that this was going to make sense. Let's get into it. So we're an agency, and across our portfolio, we have consistently sent more than 1 million cold emails a month. But what I'm talking about here and what's slightly different is this is one offer for one client, because realistically, we have quite a bit of crossover because we do a lot of B2B outreach. We're reaching out to businesses. And so we might have multiple clients reaching out to the same business with completely different offers and completely different niches. So this was a slightly different challenge. And just for some context, this is before scaling. So these are essentially what was happening. So you could see that this was just like 1 week. We had sent 10,000 emails roughly. The reply rate was 3.44%. And this is in Smartlead. So I believe this is excluding like out of offices, that sort of thing. Positive reply rate. So we'd gone around 59 positive replies. We know that roughly we had an 8.5% positive reply rate to close rate. So these were the numbers, 10,000 net new leads a month. It was a 4-step sequence. So we did 40,000 emails a month, 1.3% positive reply rate, which is these numbers multiplied, 8.5% positive reply rate to close rate. And this was getting around 11 closes a month. No, this is like a low ticket product. So it was around a $600 product, and the margin on that product was around, like $200. So there was probably around $2,000 worth of profit here in month 1. Before scaling, we had a few things. We had clear offer market fit. The offer market fit is clear just because of the replies that we were getting. If you're getting around a 1.5% positive reply rate, you will have offer market fit, especially if you've got a really big market. So in this case, we can service pretty much not every, but a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. So we're currently profitable with the setup. So when I say it's $2,000 profit a month, that's including costs of doing this. And we end up moving to a really cheap infrastructure provider, which I'll show you a bit later in the video, and I'll link it to them. So this initial outbound was on Hypertide, and we can get Hypertide orders for $40 because we've got thousands of orders with them. So it's a little bit cheaper, but then we moved to an even cheaper provider. So we're profitable with the current setup, ran enough of a test to figure out ROI, and the campaign was clearly positive. Important because what I often see is we make this mistake, and lots of other people make this mistake, is like you don't have offer market fit, so you try and solve it by just ramming the volume, which is fine, but you're not going to get more offer market fit because you've increased the volume. You're going to get less because as you increase the volume, you go further and further away from your ideal customer profile. So in this case, the ideal customer here is like law firms, but we run out of law firms very quickly. And so we end up targeting not ideal companies, let's say like auto shops or something. Like we can still serve them, but they're just nowhere near as beneficial as law firms. So the offer market fit decreases over time. But we had clear offer market fit here. So we were comfortable scaling. And then this is once we've scaled a bit. So you can see that we've gone from 1,300 to 20,000 on Smartlead. And then we've added this on instantly because our cheaper provider doesn't integrate with Smartlead. So this is sending 10,000 net new leads a day. We're doing 450,000 net new leads a month right now. And this is a 3-step sequence. So we cut it down from a 2-step to a 3-step sequence because I found that the positive reply rate was like 1.2% or let's say 1% on the first email. And then by the last email, it was like 0.1% or something. I didn't want to waste that sending capacity. Like, yes, we'd scrape the leads. And so all the cost of the lead scraping had already been done, but the juice wasn't worth the squeeze by the end. I'd rather be putting new leads into the system at that point. So we moved from a 4-step sequence down to a 3-step sequence. And our positive reply rate is mildly worse, not much worse. So this dropped down to this, which makes quite a big difference. And the reasons why is because we've just moved further and further away from ICP. So these people, although they respond positively still, are just less likely to buy because they're not a perfect fit for the services. Okay, so these are the after scaling results. So let's dive into a few lessons. So lead quality issues. When we first started to scale, we increased the total addressable market by going broader, but this decreased the positive reply rate way more than expected. When we first started, like I said, we moved from like lawyers to auto shops, and we just go really broad because that was cheaper to get the data essentially, and they didn't perform as well. And so instead we got more expensive data and by getting better coverage. So we would get better coverage of lawyers as opposed to just getting more data across different niches. That is what we did that. And I essentially did that, and this is going to sound really stupid. I'll show you. So I essentially did that, and I'll just find one of these. We would have a whole lot of invalid emails. So we'd do a big scrape, we'd get a whole lot of invalids, let's say like 40% of them, 50% of them were invalids. And I literally just set up a prompt which says, we're trying to find a valid email address for the company. Below is info about the company as well as the email that was invalid. Can you try find another one? And then we test it, we find some more valids, and we do this again. I found 2 invalids. Can you try and find another one? And then we email them into a master list. And so this costs a decent amount in credits, and we're trying to get like a Gemini grant at the moment, which I would recommend looking into by now. And then moving this into like Gemini Flash, which should be relatively similar, except way cheaper. But this is essentially how we're going about getting more coverage, is we're just literally using a prompt and saying, hey, find the email. Also, we can obviously get these domains and put them into something like Apollo, or we're using A-Leads to do this, and then finding other decision makers at those companies. So getting more coverage as opposed to broadening the targeting is what we're doing at the moment, and that's kept the reply rate relatively similar. Increase the amount of leads by improving coverage across the TAM is kind of the lesson that I learned here. It's still a massive TAM. Like, we can still serve 20 million companies. It is still a massive TAM, but you still definitely feel this. Getting enough valid leads is hard. Like, depending on how you do this, these are all Google Maps scraped leads, and so it's a technical challenge to deal with this amount of leads. One of the big things is that we're getting a lot of duplicates, meaning that when you're doing big Google Maps scrapes, typically you are scraping based on area and then you're appending them, like you're making a big list of all these combined lists. And what we've found is you get a lot of duplicates from that, because depending on how you do the scrape, you can either prioritize industry or prioritize location. We typically get better results from prioritizing industry, like the search term, as opposed to where it is, but it means that it will go further afield than your area to find those leads, and that means you get a lot of duplicates. When you scale, getting enough valid leads is hard. I know most companies, and we're getting to this point as well, that do large scale outreach. Let's say you're doing 2 million sends a month for a client or something. You're probably going to just have your own database built in Supabase with everything, and so you can re-pull lists that you already own, and that's what we're getting to as well. Training a full-time inbox manager. So we have someone that works full-time just in the inbox for all of our portfolio, but this job, let's say, doubled the amount of replies we're getting, and so we just like, okay, well, we need to hire someone full-time just for these replies. We hired someone which is in the Philippines. They're hourly plus commission. They're doing a really good job. They're also confident enough to just pick up the phone and call a prospect. So if the prospect says, call me, the inbox manager will just call them and just be like, hey, I'm calling on behalf of Daniel. I just saw your email. Answer some questions for you, that sort of thing. We also have an AI manage the initial positive responses. We get a positive reply comes in. They're always going to say, sure, what's the price? How does this work? What are the next steps? And so we just have an AI that says, okay, great. This is how it works. We've got like a templated reply. Just kind of adjust the first line, and then the inbox manager deals with the second order replies after that, typically, unless the automation breaks, and then they have a hellish day. But this is something that we found was required, and maybe you could fully manage it with like AI responding, but like as I was showing up here, this is getting, let's just zoom in here, let's say 50 to 80 positive responses a day, and then this is getting like another 100. So we're getting like 180 positive responses a day, which having someone manage all those replies is a lot, because then they're gonna be replying and coming back in and everything. You do need some automation here, or you could have probably 2 people across the inbox, then you're just gonna cut into your margins. But that's kind of what we're looking at there. So we also tested cheaper infrastructure. We used this, and I was very skeptical at first, which I recommend you be skeptical as well, but it was significantly cheaper. I would recommend that. I'll put a link down below as well if you want to sign up for that. I have an affiliate link that I just created before this video, so if you got value from it and that's cool, you can do that, or you can just go to ourengine.com. Again, do your due diligence beforehand. I had a call with Adam, the owner, and he seemed genuine. He answered my questions how I was looking for them to be answered. So there was that. And on top of this, we increased our daily sending from 2 to 3 a day on Hypertide, which is above their recommended. So don't do this. I'm not recommending you do this, but we're trying to squeeze every juice that we can. And then if they burn, I'm just going to move them to here anyway, because they're cheaper, and so they would actually save us money. But that's just something that we're doing. Again, I'm telling you what we're doing. Don't actually go out here and copy what we're doing and then say that you've burnt all your infrastructure or you're having issues, okay? So far, it seems to be going fine, but I've only done this for a few weeks. This could bite us in the ass. What are we doing next? So we've got someone who is going to be calling the leads. So like I said, we get over 100 positive responses a day. Ideally, they all just get a call. We, send them an email, they get a call, and we try and see if we can close more deals. Because what I see is this positive reply rate to close rate could be higher, or if this was from 6% to 9%, that's a 50% increase, right? That's massive. And I think they're having someone calling them all, and we'll just get them calling on 100% commission, if it makes sense. Better coverage. This is what I was showing above, is just figuring out better and better ways to solve this issue where we get essentially better coverage. Just for context, when I say coverage, I mean 100 companies that you can help. How many valid email addresses can you find? Because typically the coverage would be like 30 to 40%. Out of 100 companies that you think you could help, you can probably find 30 to 40% valid emails. So if you can find 60, then that's double the coverage, and you can do double the volume of sending without going outside your total addressable market, or TAM. So we're going to go for 1 million net new leads, and then we're going to go for 1.5, and then 2 million net new leads. We're just going to keep scaling until we run into issues. I'm not going to try and foresee what the issues are, because I don't know, because I haven't done the scale yet. So I will keep you posted with how it goes, but I'm kind of excited to see what breaks and how to solve it. I know that other people in the space are sending this sort of volume, so there's just no reason why we can't as well. If you are a B2B business and you think you could benefit from this sort of scale, or reaching out to a whole bunch of people, you can book in a call with somebody in my team below, and we can provide some advice, or if you want to work with us, then we can have a conversation about that. If you want to dive deeper into understanding the systems and the thinking behind this sort of outreach, there should be a long video on screen now where I talk for 8 hours about this sort of thing. So I'll see you there. Peace.